Hey everyone, it's Hayes, and yes, today is the day we are going to be talking about whether or not Adrien is a Sentimonster. You know, I was expecting some light fun and maybe some love square moments from Mega Leech. Instead, we got to see the inside of everyone's ears and the hellscape that was the final scene. So let's break this down. I don't know if he is or isn't a Sentimonster, but not knowing has been making me literally feel ill since Tuesday, with the possibility that he maybe could be, because there are a lot of things pointing towards him being it. And I've said this before, that nothing in the show ever happens for no reason. If these clues don't point to Adrien being a Sentimonster, then they definitely mean something else big. So I've tried to combine what I think with your comments from the other videos and community posts of mine, as well as some threads from Twitter, Cartoon Apocalypse's video from the other day, as well as the theories about Sentimonsters from Marie Dupangrest on Instagram, who I'll link down below. So let's start with what we know for definite, not theories. Let's start with some concrete facts. Thomas Astruc tweeted out the other day to clear up some things because people were getting confused. So, Sentimonsters are emotions transformed into a living being. They can be anything, depending on the will of the person using the Peacock Miraculous, e.g. a person like Sentinino or Sentibug, a butterfly like Optigami, or a huge gorilla because Shadow Daddy was feeling a bit spicy the day Queen Banana happened. They are controlled by whoever has the Amok object, and only the Peacock Miraculous holder can feel a Sentimonster. Now, let's stop there for a second. Does Thomas Astruc mean an Amok or a Sentimonster? In Feast, Natalie says she could sense an Amok within, not a Sentimonster. So I don't know if he's phrasing this wrong, or there was a translation error for the English script for Feast, or perhaps neither are wrong, but Natalie only said Amok when she could sense the Sentimonster too. If this is the case, then what about Fu? Could he not sense that Adrien is a Sentimonster? And what about Daddy Gress now he's the holder? If what Thomas Astruc is saying is correct, and they can also sense the Sentimonster, they all should have been able to tell that Adrien was one. So let's carry on. If they don't own the control object, they can still destroy it. I mean, I don't know how, like through sheer willpower or something. If cataclysms, it breaks the link between the owner and goes berserk, like we saw in Queen Banana, for example. So we all saw in the episode Miraculous that Chat Noir got cataclysmed, and while it hurt him, he didn't go berserk. Thomas Astruc confirmed it wasn't a fake or a weak one because Sabrina did it, it was a real cataclysm. However, they also said the suits make them less vulnerable to injury, which I would assume would include a cataclysm. If he touched anyone else, he would have killed them, but he didn't because of his suits. Of course, he does kill Aeon in the New York special with his cataclysm, but Aeon as Uncanny Valley doesn't use a Miraculous, so I don't think we can compare the suits and say they're the same. So this either means Adrien is a Sentimonster, but the suit protected him and he didn't go berserk as a result, or he's a human and the suit just protected him from dying. The last thing Thomas Astruc says is we've been shown everything in Ladybug and Feast, which were both in Season 3. We also know from Optigami this season that the Peacock Miraculous holder doesn't have to stay transformed for the Sentimonster to exist as long as the Amok is safe and they are allowed one Amok per holder at a time. Hence why Optigami could live while Daddy Gress made more Amoks in Season 4, like in Truth and Queen Banana and Guilt Trip, for example. The Sentimonsters can also look and act like a human, and also have free will if they have the Amok, or the one who has it doesn't control them with it. He also said Sentimonsters could be a baby and grow up, so it's completely plausible that if Adrien was a Sentimonster, he wouldn't actually know, and it also backs up why he was kept inside for so long. However, as long as the Amok was always kept safe, surely Adrien could go to school and see his friends. He can't really get hurt if the Amok is safe. However, let's evaluate that for a second. So when Gabriel and Emily, or Natalie, honestly, I don't know at this point who found the Butterfly and Peacock Miraculouses anymore. I'm not sure if they were in Tibet for the sole reason of looking for them, or they were just, on holiday and found them. However, in the Shanghai special, Daddy Gress does say on the plane at the start of the special that what he started 15 years ago will be finished tomorrow. Adrien is about 14-15 years old. However, Daddy Gress never really explicitly states in the Shanghai special what that really means, to be honest. Referring to those 15 years, I'm not really sure he's referring to Emily with that. Emily, as of Felix, has only been missing / has been dead for a year as of the episode Felix. It hasn't been 15 years. She didn't die the moment Adrien was born. So I feel like the prodigious relates to something to do with Adrien. But like I said, he doesn't really explicitly go into why he needs it other than the extra power to defeat Ladybug and Chat Noir, which obviously he can use their Miraculouses to bring his wife back to life. So like I said, I am a bit confused as to why he even needed the Prodigious for something he started 15 years ago. Why on earth does he need not 1, not 2, but 3 pieces of magical jewellery to protect Adrien if he wasn't a Sentimonster? And even if he was a Sentimonster, why do they need them either? There are a lot of theories as to why he needs protecting, and a popular one is that Emily couldn't get pregnant, so she made a Sentimonster of Adrien, but because of the power she was using for it, it made the Miraculous break. But I don't see why that would make it break. I believe it breaking is why she's in a coma, as she still used it when it was broken, but I'm not sure that's what caused it to break. That's its purpose after all. The other theory is that neither of the sisters could conceive, so both Emily and Amelie, who is Felix's mum. So Emily somehow created 2 Sentimonsters, one of Adrien and one of Felix, and tied them to the 2 twin rings. It was done by accident, which caused the Peacock Miraculous to break. And while I definitely do think that's a good enough reason for it to break, we haven't seen in the show yet if this is possible. Like I said, so far we only know we can only make one Sentimonster at once. Or like I said, it could be a bit more simple than that, so Amelie is able to have children, and Emily is jealous, so she makes a copy of Felix, her sister's son, because she can't get pregnant. And I think the reasoning behind this one is pretty solid. So as we all know, there's this kind of weird portrait of Emily in the house. I've always thought it was odd. However, I have now found this information thanks to the Marie du Pangrest Instagram. Like I said, I'll link them down below, and it's extremely similar to this other portrait of a woman named Adele Bloch, and I won't even attempt to pronounce her last name. She couldn't get pregnant, and she was gifted this painting, which is pretty much exactly the same as Emily's portrait. I always thought that portrait was odd, and this is why. Like I said, nothing in the show is not done for a reason. However, I do kind of like the idea of Felix being the evil twin and Adrien being the perfect one. I think that has some traction to it. And this brings me on to my next point, which is Adrien's perfection. Thomas Astruc has said Adrien is perfect, no doubt about it. The only problem is, Adrien hasn't been written like that. Yes, everyone calls him that, like Kagami and Chloe and even his dad, but he doesn't act like that. If he was perfect, he would have confronted Lila sooner, he would have seen he didn't feel anything for Kagami and not let her on, he wouldn't have just randomly destroyed a wall in Sentibubbler out of anger, and he would have told Ladybug something was up. However, we can argue that when he left the house for the first time in Origins in Season 1, he was perfect, and has now become tarnished, I guess, by everyone else's influence on him. This links to the end of Mega Leech with the ring. Daddy Agreste isn't happy with what Adrien did at the protest, so he sends his son to his room and Adrien obeys. Then Daddy Agreste touches his ring. In my opinion, Adrien obeying his dad doesn't point to him being a Sentimonster. Adrien has grown up, at least since his mum died, in arguably an emotionally abusive household. He knows if he acts out, his dad will take his freedom away from him. By standing against his dad at the protest, he was already in enough trouble. He couldn't afford to get in any more. Gabriel wasn't controlling him. As for why Gabriel touches his ring then, I don't know. He could be thinking about how similar Adrien is to Emily in that moment. He is wearing Emily's wedding ring, I'm pretty sure, as Felix took Gabriel's ring in Felix, and the likelihood of Felix stealing the ring that didn't have Adrien's muck in it is a 50-50 chance, so it would be a pretty big coincidence for him not to steal Adrien's amok, assuming Adrien is a Sentimonster. Honestly, that scene to me felt like it was just foreshadowing the finale, since we know Adrien stands up to his dad properly, but the ring touch was definitely odd, so I am hoping episode 9 Daddy Agreste will answer some questions, since we found out last night someone finds out he is Shadow Daddy. Right now, I think the most likely candidate is Lila, but if he tells Felix instead, the ring touch could be something to do with that. Felix is manipulative and likes to sneak around the house, so maybe he finds something he wasn't bargaining for, and he and Daddy Agreste use the rings to manipulate each other. Now let's talk about Chat Blanc, and for a while I had assumed most things were destroyed in Paris. So Adrien, if he was a Sentimonster, his amok would have been destroyed and he would have died, since I'm pretty confident if he is a Sentimonster, the amok is not on him. However, it looks like things have been largely flooded and toppled over as a result of the moon being split in half, not destroyed. If you didn't know, the moon controls our tides and can actually affect flooding, hence why Paris flooded in this instance. However, Ladybug and Hawk Daddy did die, and not just them, but Hawk Daddy's staff also got destroyed, aka an object, not a living being. Now, we've seen no other proof of anyone else dying in this episode, so we don't know how far-reaching the death part of this went in terms of geographical landmass, but Emily could have feasibly died, and there's no evidence to the contrary of that. However, it seems only living beings in the immediate area were killed, but again, there's no evidence to dispute that. So let's look at this map of Miraculous Paris, and stick with me for a moment. This is going to get a bit technical and weird, but I promise I have a point to make. So there are some named places on this map that are actual locations in Paris, and I'm about to pronounce all of these wrong because my French speaking is terrible, so apologies. So let's compare it with Google Maps. Theatre du Châtelet, Place du Châtelet, and Fountain de Palmier are like this in Paris, and they are also next to the bridge Pont au Change. However, whoever made this map noted it might not be that bridge. It could also be Pont Alexandre, which is an entirely different bridge altogether. This one is a lot closer to the Eiffel Tower, however, it's still pretty far away, as is the other bridge. However, when Hawk Daddy yeets his son out of the house in Chat Blanc, he seems to go in a pretty straight line, which makes it seem as if the Eiffel Tower is at the other end of the bridge opposite their house. Last point, I promise this will make sense in a second. The park by Marinette's house, Place de Vosges, is in an entirely different area of Paris from the other two. So what I'm saying is the geography of Paris in Miraculous is not correct. It's all over the place, which is fine. But it also means they could have moved the location of the Eiffel Tower to be closer to the Agreste mansion, i.e. right at the end of the bridge opposite their house. The Eiffel Tower is where Chat Blanc did his mega catalysm thing, so Emily would have been in the immediate area and could have possibly been killed. This would have destroyed her ring and the brooch she was wearing, and I'm assuming if Adrien is a Sentimonster, that's where the muck is. But like I said, we don't know how close the Eiffel Tower was, so we're not sure, and we also don't know if Chat Blanc killed anyone else. This leads on to my next point. Maybe Gabriel isn't even aware Adrien is a Sentimonster if he is. Emily could have pretended to get pregnant and then created a baby Sentimonster on her due date. However, if the amok is on her and Gabriel is now the Peacock Miraculous holder, surely he would have sensed the amok. I would assume he does go and see his wife every so often, although I'm pretty sure we haven't seen it yet this season, although I am expecting it to happen in episode 9. There is also some other evidence pointing to Adrien being a Sentimonster, like the meaning of his fifth name being immortal, which, not gonna lie, makes me feel sick, as well as the end card of Ladybug. There's an unpurified amok feather by Adrien. Further than that, Ezra, the voice director for the English dub, has always said Adrien isn't a Sentimonster. But he doesn't actually know. He only gets the script to record voices. He can't confirm anything, that was just his idea. He doesn't know anything about the future of the plot of the show, other than probably a few things he's heard here and there. I would assume they haven't told him something as big as that. So right now, that all points to Adrien being a Sentimonster. Great! However, there is some compelling evidence that helps say he's not. First of all, and this is just a theory, but is it possible for Kwamis to be able to sense a Sentimonster? The only one who has got close to one recently is Waze in Optogami, but he didn't say anything. However, they do often miss things out due to the time constraints in the episode, and this could be just one of those things. Or he could have truly not known, so like I said, just a theory. So let's move on to something more concrete, which is Aeon. In the New York special, as she's an android, the quantum masking has no effect on her and she knows Ladybug and Chat Noir's identities. She can also do this kind of scan. One shows Adrien and Marinette, and one shows the Akuma villain. They are all in this hideous lime green colour, but the Akuma has a sparkly outline. Adrien and Marinette, though, look the same. So either Marinette is a Sentimonster too, or Adrien isn't a Sentimonster and he is human. Or possibly Aeon can't see that, but I don't really see why she wouldn't be able to detect that Adrien wasn't human. However, I'm pretty sure we will see Jess and Aeon again in the show. As Bunnick said in Time Target in Season 3 that Majestia will get akumatized in the future, so I'm hoping that episode will have an amok in it and we will know for sure if Aeon can see them. But like I said, that might not happen. And finally, we also need to ask ourselves, would Thomas Astruc and the other people behind the show actually do that to us? Would they make Adrien, a main character, a Sentimonster? If this show was for teenagers or adults, I would say yes without any hesitation. But even though Thomas Astruc is aware this show has a much larger audience outside of the 6 to 10-year-old target audience, it is still aimed at children. I do genuinely feel like a lot of kids would be made upset by this. Case in point, I was a bridesmaid on Saturday, and the flower girl was 9 years old. Her favourite TV show is Miraculous Ladybug, so out of curiosity, I told her this theory as we were talking about the show. Do you know what happened? I nearly made her cry. I think they could potentially lose a lot of viewers unless this was revealed at the very end of the show. And honestly, I'm not sure I want Adrien to be a Sentimonster. Part of me is like, oh my god, this would be one of the best twists in the history of television ever. But then another part of me really, really, truly feels this would be a massive cop-out and would greatly detract from Adrien and Marinette's relationship, but I'm not really sure why it would, I just feel that way about it. So do I think Thomas Astruc would do this? Yes, I do think he would do this. The man's a sadist. But has he done it? I don't know. I truly don't know. There is a lot of evidence to say Adrien is a Sentimonster, or at least Felix is a Sentimonster, and if neither of them are, then there is something definitely extremely dodgy going on with the Agrests, further than this man wanting to bring his wife back to life and keeping her body in the basement, because that's just... the tone of this show is just all over the place. So I'm really, really looking forward to seeing episode 9, Gabriel Agreste, because I definitely feel this is going to offer us a lot of answers. First of all, it's going to offer us the answer to the end scene of Mega Leech, and I am hoping for some other answers about him and his family just in general. So, after that bit of a dive into everything, I tried to include as much as I could and put it all together. I would like to know what you think. Do you think Adrien is a Sentimonster? Like I said, I genuinely do not know. I have no idea. I don't know. So let me know what you think. I'll see you in the next one.